It is Power Rankings Day, and instead of just some of those other ones, oh, here's my top five and bottom five. Nah. We do all 32 here. We're running them all down, or building them up, depending on how you want to look at it. So let's start with number 32. We'll work from the bottom and work our way up. This one was easy. It's the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if a football team has ever looked worse than the Carolina Panthers looked on Sunday. The offense was atrocious. The defense was terrible. And it all looks very, very bad. And the major concern is that they have either screwed up Bryce Young to the point of no return, or Bryce Young is just not the guy that they thought he was going to be. Either way, not ideal if you are the Carolina Panthers. And so it is going to take a lot, I think, for me to have the Carolina Panthers not in this spot as the worst team in the league. At number 31, it is the New York Giants. And again, it's the same thing. The offense looked atrocious. The defense looked terrible. And there are, I think, major concerns out there. This was a bit of a wait and see year for the Giants anyway. Some would call it a wait and see year. I would call it a wasted year with the Giants. You have known for a while that Daniel Jones isn't the guy. But yet, they had to pay him because he had the guy year at a time where they were needing to pay him. Welcome. Toxic. Thanks for stopping by. I was saying before, I think we have the audio sync issue. It looks significantly better on my end. So let me know if the audio sync problems persist. If nothing else, I've deleted a bunch of stuff. It's much better. Fantastic. Also, thank you for the Kick subscription. Or not subscription, sorry, but the follow. I greatly appreciate that. This one is only on Twitch, and I kind of think that's why it's working. So anyway, we'll see. Back to the football breakdown. The Giants are wasting this year. It feels like everything is geared now toward them getting an actual quarterback next year. But again, just getting the quarterback isn't going to solve anything. I don't like Daniel Jones. I don't think he's a very good quarterback at all. That being said, they haven't exactly built a great foundation around him. And so the thing I would caution for the Giants, if this is going to go down the route that it looked like it would when they got absolutely whooped on by the Vikings, I would say that I would caution just saying that, look, bringing in the number 1 overall pick or number 2 overall pick as the starting quarterback, great, that's fine. You need to shore up this offensive line and maybe get some weapons for this guy to throw to so Wan'Dale Robinson doesn't end up getting 11 targets for you in a game. At 30, it's the Vegas Raiders. Again, some horrendous coaching decisions. Gardner Minshew looked bad. This team was absolutely shut down by the Chargers defense. Now, I do think the Chargers defense is going to be better than maybe we anticipate, and so there is the potential that a Raider performance like that in this game is maybe not as much the sky is falling in Vegas as I think it might be, and there could absolutely be just some bias on my part and just worried that it's not going to work, but again, just no part of this team looked very good in that game. At 29, it's Washington. At least Jaden Daniels is fun and exciting, but he is definitely one read and go. And even then, it is one read, no, not the most wide open a human has ever been, and go. The offensive line isn't going to give him any help, and the defense is horrendous again this year. So there are concerns out in Washington for sure. At 28, it's New England. They get a win. I don't buy it. I still think this is a bad football team. They just had a nice soft landing spot against a Cincinnati football club that was dealing with a lot of things going on. Off the field, we will say, going into that game. But yeah, I still don't think the Patriots are anything. At 27, it's Cleveland. That's how bad they looked in getting whooped on by the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. And the big concern there is the defense giving up that many points. And I get when you're on the field the whole time, eventually you're going to give up points. And maybe it was me underestimating the Cowboys offense, but I didn't think that they were a put up 30 plus points on the best defense in football type of a team. So worried about the defense, worried again about the offensive line. Funny All of these teams so far, offensive line issues. And there's the major concern out there that the piece of shit that they signed to play quarterback is also a piece of shit quarterback, not just a piece of shit as a human being. At 26, it's the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix didn't look very good. The defense didn't look very good. Just not a whole lot of redeeming qualities about this football team. At 25, it is the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, thank you, Deeds, for letting me know that the sync is awesome. That is such good news. That it's actually working. This is again, we'll get to the ranking stuff in a second. This is the problem with what I did. So just to go a peek behind the curtain, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm going full bore into it. So downloaded the plugin to be able to stream on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube all at the same time. Downloaded the plugin for the vertical camera so that could do some social media stuff as well. Not that I'm close to being able to stream live on TikTok, but at least being able to make TikTok clips and stuff like that. And then we go live, and all of a sudden, it's not working, as you guys saw the other day, or even yesterday. So I was like, okay, what are some of these things I could fix? You know what? Let's just get rid of all of it. Let's just bare bones. We know, I know that when I record on here, it works. And I've gone on Twitch, not on this one, but I've gone live on one platform before, and it's worked with Game Over on YouTube. So why am I trying to overshoot things a little bit? So maybe I will slowly start to reintroduce those things, and we will see what the problem was. I do still want to figure out some stuff to do on Kick, but we will get there when we get there. But yes, the stream is working fine, which is fantastic news. And again, Deeds and Toxic, you guys are the best. Even though kind of got whooped on in the Vampire League this week. But I'm not going to hold that against you because you don't want to give up your players to the Vampire. That is for sure. At 25 in the power rankings here, it's the Minnesota Vikings. They are a team that got to play the New York Giants. Good for them. I don't think this means they are very good. I think they got worse with Jalen Addison going down with an injury. And so I just view this as a team that got to play a worse team in week one. So congratulations to the Minnesota Vikings. You got a good draw in week one. It does not get any easier for you in the weeks ahead. So careful. Let's just not get too excited about things with the Minnesota Vikings. But yes, Deeds, Toxic faced me in week one. He got to be the Minnesota Vikings. Well, we'll see. I think his team's actually pretty good. But he got to be the Minnesota Vikings and just taking on a bad team. And yeah, Deeds with the victory over my wife. So our two main chatters here did not go kindly on the house of Klein and wife this weekend. All right, 24. It's the Chicago Bears. They won. The defense forced some turnovers, so that's good. I don't know if that means that they are really good or if Tennessee's just really bad. Caleb Williams won, but he threw for 96 yards. So I don't know what we learned from that game, quite frankly. I don't know if we learned that Tennessee sucks. I don't know if we learned that Chicago sucks, but just sucks less than Tennessee, or if Chicago was really good and they were able to just find a way to win. I don't know what we take from that game. And honestly, probably I don't know if I should have Tennessee higher than Chicago, but apparently I do. At 23, it's New Orleans. I anticipate this ranking will change aggressively as the season goes on. I don't think this is very good, a very good football team. The thing that separates them from Minnesota is I view their defense as being a legitimate group. Dennis Allen sucks as a coach, but he's a real good defensive coordinator. And that means that I at least buy into the defensive part of this. Offensively, they're not doing that again, I don't believe at all. At 22, it's the Tennessee Titans. I said coming into the year, I thought this was an improved football team. They did not look like it in the second part of that game against the Chicago Bears. So part of this is just kind of me holding on to trying to be right 2 years in a row on a team that everyone doubted. At 21, it's Arizona. They get a good competitive game with the Buffalo Bills, just not the game that maybe I thought. If they could have stole that one, we would have been well on our way with a Arizona Cardinals over ticket and a and a sneaky play on Arizona to maybe win that division. Although I said the injury issues could creep up for San Francisco. That didn't seem to slow them down on Monday. At 20, it's Atlanta. Kirk Cousins looked really bad. And so, like, if we were just going to base it off of no prior, like, biases or anything like that, no prior assumptions, I think Atlanta would be one of the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the league. Like that offensive performance was scary bad. And now we are to assume that Kirk Cousins is just going to get healthier as the season goes on, which in one sense, like maybe as you get further removed from getting a season-ending injury, it should get better. But also, that's just not how football works. Guys tend to get more hurt as the year goes on, not less. So I would have great concerns out in Atlanta. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they come in at 19 again because that defense is legit. And if Justin Fields can continue to come in and help this offense, then all the power to them as well. At 18, it's the Indianapolis Colts, a loss against the Houston Texans, but they hung in there. Anthony Richardson with a really interesting performance. We'll talk about that in the fantasy football conversation we're going to have here in a little bit. At 17, it's Cincinnati. I am still holding out some hope that they are going to be not the dominant team that some people who were picking them to go to the Super Bowl thought, but maybe not the bad team that they looked like in week 1. Again, if this was just based on purely what they looked like in week 1, then this is a team that's in the bottom 5 in the NFL. At 16, Tampa Bay, they beat a bad team, but I thought they'd be okay this year anyway. So they get in at the midway point. At 15, it's the Chargers, probably a little bit too high on a team that I'm not anticipating being able to put up a whole lot of offensive points. But I think that defense is going to be for real. And they are, we talked about the defense in fantasy football yesterday, looking at the waiver wire. They have a great matchup against Carolina this week. At 14, it's the Rams. They were one of the teams that looked so much better than I was expecting. And that's even with Puka Nacua going down with an injury. At 13, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I said coming into the year, I think that this team is getting slept on a little bit. And they are a Travis Etienne fumble away from picking up a really good first week win over the Miami Dolphins. They still have some things to figure out, but I think this is going to be a pretty good team. At 12, it's Seattle. It looked better. Some areas it didn't, but most areas it did. Now, you didn't get the toughest test against the Denver Broncos, so that's that, and we fully understand that. Seattle this week, trying to scroll through very, very quickly, which never works for me. Seattle this week gets the New England Patriots. So I don't know how much of a read we're going to get on Seattle coming out of that game either, but we will see. At 11, it's the Jets. I still don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the one to lead this team to the promised land. I think there are real concerns about that defense getting gashed by a backup running back in week 1, but they still have one of the better rosters in the NFL, and so I still think you have to take them at least the littlest bit seriously coming into this one. At 10, it's the Buffalo Bills. We will see them coming up tomorrow night as they take on the Miami Dolphins. They pick up a win. Josh Allen is Superman. I worry about him needing to be Superman week in and week out. With the arm, we kind of expected, but that was a lot of running and a lot of him getting beat up, and that is just not going to be something they can do throughout the entirety of this season. It's just not. At 9, it's Green Bay. Probably would have had them higher had they won, but that's kind of how these work. But also, I think I would have had them higher if Jordan Love's knee hadn't almost exploded out there. Malik Willis is a bad quarterback. I don't, and the thing is, this is what I don't get. I would understand if you were Washington, or if you were like a Baltimore, or someone else with a mobile quarterback. Malik Willis, I think, works there. But it just, you have to change up the offense so much from Jordan Love to him. I would, if I were running an NFL franchise, and I feel like at this point, that's probably out the window for me, I kind of want my backup quarterback to be very similar to what I have as the regular quarterback. So if Jordan Love is throwing a pass and the top of his body goes right and the bottom goes left, then you can still, you at least have someone who you can just kind of plant into the offense. But Love and Willis aren't really the same type of quarterback. And obviously, like, the difference is, like, one's a good quarterback and one's a bad quarterback. But there's also stylistic differences. And so I don't really love that. So that's just a whatever. Like, it's popped up a little bit in Winnipeg when they went from Zach Collaros to Strevler. The offense is significantly different for what you can do with a Collaros and with a Strevler. Same thing with the Argos when they went from Chad Kelly to Cameron Dukes. Like, Kelly hasn't done great in a couple of weeks, but he is someone you have a full regular football playbook for. Dukes, they tried to run that and it didn't work because that's not him. He's a very good mobile quarterback and you need to take advantage of that. And so this is a roster construction lesson for all of you out there. At number 8, it is the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, they looked good against Cleveland. But again, I think a lot of that is Cleveland, and very little of that is Dallas. So we will see how that goes on. At 7, it's Miami. I know that there was some concern about how they looked against Jacksonville. I still think that it's week 1. You don't want to read too much into these things. I still think they are going to be a good team on both sides of the football. I just think that it's week 1. You're kind of getting everything set. Your best player and new defensive player got arrested before the game in what has to be something that wears on people mentally, given the nature of that and everything that played out with that. So I'm going to give Miami a bit of a mulligan on that one. At 6, it is the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, they lost, but I thought they played a really, really good football game on Thursday night against Kansas City. At 5, it's the Houston Texans, again with a bit of a complete performance against the Indianapolis Colts, so you feel pretty good about how all of that went down. At 4, it is the Detroit Lions. Again, I have them as a Super Bowl contender and a team that I think people need to be very, very wary of. And I think this is a complete team. And I think Jameson Williams unlocks something in this offense that they didn't have last year. And I think if they can have a legitimate defense, then this is a team that should be competing for the Super Bowl in February. At 3, it's Philadelphia. They won against a good team while kind of playing badly in certain instances, but there are so many parts of their game that I liked. I just had to put them up there. At 2, it's San Francisco. To get a win over a team that I have ranked in the top 12 is a really good sign, I think, and is absolutely... It shows that you can do this even with no Christian McCaffrey. That was really impressive what they did. And my concern about San Francisco isn't in the first few weeks of the season. My concern is the injury luck that they had last year. It just felt like everyone was banged up in training camp. Will those things linger throughout the season? Obviously, they didn't on Monday night, but now how will they throughout the year? But for now, it's a talented football team that looked like a talented football team and beating another talented football team, so I gotta have them high. And at number 1, it's Kansas City. Like 5 plays into that game on Thursday night, it just kind of felt like, oh shit, this is not over, because there's a lot of really good teams in the NFL. But boy, oh boy, does this feel not like that. This feels like the best team in the league. This doesn't feel like last year where, well, they have Mahomes and that defense is good, so you got to take them seriously. And then in the playoffs, they just turn into a juggernaut again. This is oh my God. I don't know how you beat these guys. I got like your backup tight end goes off. That's how you beat them. But like Pacheco running like a madman was great. And Worthy and Rashee Rice are just beasts. And they won and put up good points against a good defense with Travis Kelce doing fuck all. And that defense looks really, really good. So I do think that Kansas City is the best team in the league. And like 8 guys are going to have to get hurt for me to not think that right now. Back in the chat, Deeds, no McCaffrey or Ayuk. He did nothing in that game. That is very fair. A very quiet performance from Brandon Ayuk. And that is honestly maybe a good reason why I should have the Jets a little bit lower than I do. This was weird. Like I put Seattle in my top half. Just initially, just writing the teams down. And then I kept putting them ahead of teams. And I was like, I like Seattle. I don't think I like Seattle enough to put them as the 12th best team in the league. I didn't think I would have Seattle in a spot where if this was the college football playoff committee, they'd be in. And so it's weird. I just said, Kansas City, I'm not going to say, oh, it's them versus everyone else, because there's a lot of good teams. And there are. But there's also quite a few really bad teams and a lot of mid. And I guess I just described how leagues work. But, there's that there isn't a whole lot of like, oh shit going on. There's a lot of like, are they? Aren't they? Yeah, we'll see. Also, one more note here on the week one thing, on the Ayuk and some of that other stuff. This was a weird week one, and I think we're going to continue to get week ones like this. I kind of feel like we did this whole thing last year. As teams play less and less in the preseason, week one is going to get sloppier and sloppier, right? Like you have the rookies who looked pretty good in the preseason. Turns out they were playing former or future Foot Locker employees. Like there's just, there isn't a whole lot that's going on out there. They're basically playing backups and recently drafted players, and just by design, we know they're good against recently drafted players. That's why they were drafted in the first round, because they're better than the recently drafted players, right? Like just, so how it works is those guys are going to look good in those games. Now they're playing against real coverages, real schemes, real players, and it's not looking as good. That doesn't mean they're going to suck. It just means this is now another level that they haven't played at, and they can't even ease into it because no one takes the preseason seriously. Same thing, like all these teams that didn't play their starters in the preseason at all, this is their first real live football since, for some, February, for others, January, and for most, December. So it's tough to really get into that groove. And so I do think that there is going to be, it's a difficult balance to try to figure out, like, okay, was this team just sloppy in week one? Was this team just, or is this team just bad? How do we figure this out? And so that's why I kind of break it down the way I do with the, I just had the DX thing, the break it down. But that's why I break it down into the 4 categories. And part of it is like, that's how a lot of people view it as well. Like for Miami, they didn't look good. They didn't look all that good. But Peter Klein, assume they're going to be good at some point, and think they are going to win this division this year. So I can write it off as, it's week one. It's they didn't play. Guys got arrested. It's whatever. But then you have a team who we expected to be bad in Carolina or the Giants or the Raiders, and they come out and they look bad in week one. And it's, oh yeah, see, dog shit football team. And so like our willingness to give the, oh, it's week one excuse to teams bases almost entirely on what we thought about them coming into the season. Now, we all do have eyeballs, and we saw just how badly Carolina and the Giants played. I guess I shouldn't assume we all have eyeballs, but working under the assumption most of us did. Or at least you have eyes or ears, so you can either see it or have it described to you in terms of a radio broadcast. But either way, we know how those teams looked. And so there is a lot of the eye test, but a lot of, it's a weird balance to figure out. So trying to not overreact to 1 week here in the NFL.